Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Limitless Podcast. My name is Alex Tice. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad you are taking time out of your busy day to spend some time with me. I take that very seriously and want to give you some inspiration that leads to action. I want you to see that you are limitless. You can do anything you set your mind to if you'll just blow past the obstacles and limits that we put in our own way. Today is Limitless episode 493 episodes of Limitless, all thanks to you. I want to start today with a quote. I can't change the direction of the wind, but I can adjust my sails to reach my destination. And that leads perfectly to our topic today, dealing with change. That quote was from Jimmy Dean, the sausage magnate, the entrepreneur, knowing that change sometimes comes our way. Change is inevitable. Sometimes we choose change, but other times change is thrust upon us, and all we can do is respond. Many times, change can impact us in a negative way if we let it. A lot of times we just can't control the change, but we can control how we respond to that change. We can adjust our sails to reach our destination. Sometimes change can be a really good thing, whether we choose it or it's thrust upon us. In the last 12 months of my life has been very crazy, probably similar for you. I go back almost a year, maybe 8 or 9 months ago, my son announced he was going into the Marines, and that was a shock. We weren't expecting it. And then he had multiple dates which he was going to join. Initially, they wanted him to join in September, and then they were full, or, so things just started to happen. Then it was October, then it was November, then it was December. He ended up leaving a week before Christmas. And I have to tell you, I was completely unprepared. Up until that point, I was concerned for him, making sure he was ready. I was concerned about my wife and her feelings and emotions, that when he finally left a week before Christmas, it hit me so hard. I actually went through a few days where I was literally depressed. And I realized I had suppressed my own feelings and emotions during that entire time. That was a big change in our lives, right? I mean, one of the biggest is having someone leave the home, he's his own man, starting his own life. It was a huge change, though. And we go through little changes in our life, changes we choose. I chose to get rid of a camping trailer that we had for 10 years that brought us so much joy, great experiences, great family times. It was still sad to see it go. Changes to this podcast, working on growing it, growing the community, writing books from it, helping other people start podcasts or write their first book, starting courses, getting rid of a car that I had for over 12 years. My Isuzu Trooper was a loyal companion. Had to get a new car, not a brand new car. I had to get another used car so my son could get back and forth to school, my other son, and get to college. And then in January, I got run over, not literally by a car, but one of the worst professional experiences of my life. Someone treated me so poorly, and I'd never been through an experience like this before. We all go through difficult times and difficult people, but this was completely unmerited. I didn't do anything wrong. Just looking back, though, it was a change that was thrust upon me that, looking back, is preparing me for the future. And it's a great reminder that when you try to do great things in your life, when you step up, when you go above and beyond, when you are stepping above average, when you're living your life to the limitless full potential, trying to do great things, you're going to face fire. It's just going to happen. Whether you write a book and put it on Amazon, you're going to get reviews. And somebody out there, no matter how good your book is going to leave some crappy review. Somebody's going to tell you that podcasting is stupid. I've had people tell me podcasting is stupid. No one listens to podcasts. I had people tell me that before I even launched my podcast. I've had people give me negative reviews of this podcast. Yeah, it's just not for me. I've had people that I know, trust, and like tell me, I think your stories are fake. Are you making them up? Which I most definitely am not. All this podcast comes from my heart. Looking back at this incident in January where I got run over, I look and say, it's a product of doing my best work, and that's going to happen, and it's preparing me for facing fire from time to time. Is it right? Should we have to face that? No, but it's change that we need to be prepared for and respond to. I can't control other people. I can only control me. And then recently, my son graduating from Marine boot camp, now he was going to be heading out to a couple other schools, and then a permanent duty station, possible deployment. I may not see him for quite some time. Big changes, just like you, future planning. I'm recording this podcast several times a week, doing hiking, parenting, travel, trying to grow business opportunities, playing hockey. Just like you, every day is filled with change, twists, turns, ups and downs. One of my favorite lyrics of all time is from the Rush song, Tom Sawyer. Changes aren't permanent, but change is. Change is literally a constant in our lives. And frankly, we don't like it. We are creatures of habit. Our brains like habit. Our brains like comfort. Our brains like things to be the same. We like things to be the same, most of us. And we like pleasant change, pleasant surprises. But change is packed with unpleasantries and pleasantries. Things that go well and things that don't go so well. Things we were expecting, changes we choose, and changes we don't choose. It's part of life. And in the past, you've probably dealt with change really well at times. And if you're like me, there's been times you probably didn't deal with change very well. Ever had a change come your way that made you panic or distraught or bothered you or just made you worry, but it ended up okay? I want you to think about that. Have you ever faced a change that you were really kind of dreading, made you worry, you didn't like, stressed you out, but it ended up being okay? I ran a department. I was the supervisor of a sales team and some customer service people. And it was a big group. And the manager, my boss at the time, decided to hire a second supervisor and divide the team up. I hated that change. I despised that we had to hire somebody. It didn't matter who we hired. I wasn't going to like them. I was determined that we didn't need them. I didn't really sabotage them, but I didn't give them a fair shot. I didn't really open myself up to them. I didn't do everything I could to make them helpful. Looking back, I'm a little bit disappointed with myself. It's how I handled that change. But you know what? The change ended up being good. It ended up being a good thing. And I ended up liking the gentleman they hired as a supervisor. He had some strengths that I didn't have. I had some strengths that he didn't have. We actually worked well together, and I was disappointed when he left. That was a change that I was kind of ticked about, but it ended up okay. Another time, looking back 17 years ago, at that same company, the distribution manager, we ran a large distribution facility, the manager of that facility decided to leave. And I went to his boss, who was in the chain of command above me, and I was, on good terms with, and I just asked her, I said, hey, have you found anybody, have any internal candidates that you're looking at? And she said, yeah, we have a few, but we feel like the best candidate hasn't come forward. I thought, well, that's too bad. And she said, yeah, there's somebody out there we really think would do a great job at this, but they haven't applied yet. They haven't even inquired about it. I said, oh. And she just looked at me and she said, you have no idea who I'm talking about, do you? I said, no. And she said, it's you. We think you'd be great at this job. I think you'd be great at this job. I want you to have this job. I want you to apply for it and interview for it. I think you would be great at it. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. Wow. Like, you see the good in me that maybe even I don't see. I was really excited for the opportunity. I interviewed. I felt really well. I felt like I was a great candidate. I felt like it was a great challenge. Pay raise, step up. And then when it came time to make the decision, they decided to go with an outside hire. And I remember the conversation as I sat down with this gal who was one of my earliest mentors. And she said, I feel like I'd be setting you up for failure if we gave you this position. You interviewed well. I'd love for you to have the job, but it's just not the right timing. I wouldn't be able to support you like you needed. The learning curve is too big, and it wouldn't be a good fit for you right now. I was devastated. I remember walking out of that discussion numb, and leaving early that day, just feeling literally like a block had been dropped on my head. Have you ever felt like that? Like a change comes your way and you just feel just embarrassed, or like you just weren't expecting it. It just runs you over. Like this incident that happened to me in January, just runs you over and you feel literally smashed. But as I look back, that decision she made was a phenomenal decision. It was a change that I didn't expect. Yet it made such a difference in my life. It changed the course of my life forever. This podcast wouldn't exist without it. I wouldn't be in San Diego. I wouldn't have grown like I did. A lot of great things have happened in my life that would not have happened if I would have taken that job or been given that opportunity. Just goes to show that sometimes there's something we want, and then there's a change that we don't understand. And how we respond to that change is everything, because it might just be a great change. Looking back 17 years ago, she made a great decision. I texted her this morning as I was about to record this just to say thank you. because it was a great decision. Changes that I didn't handle well, looking back, they ended up okay. Has that ever happened to you? What about changes you did handle well? My move to San Diego was full of twists and turns and ups and downs, and I feel like I kind of rode that wave where it took me and I handled it well and responded. That was a change I wanted. There's been changes that have happened in my life that, I wasn't expecting, like a new child or an unexpected child, and, I feel like I stepped up and handled those well too. There's been changes you've handled well. Deep down, we are good change agents. We can handle change well when we have the right mindset and the right outset. There's probably changes you picked that didn't go well too. And sometimes those are important to happen. When you make a decision or you make a change in your life and it doesn't go well, it can be a good thing. Making a mistake is how we learn. Failure is how we learn. It is a great teacher. If you're not making mistakes, you're not trying, you're not moving forward. How about changes that get thrust upon you? This change with my son joining the Marines, that was thrust upon us. It was his decision. It was a good decision. I supported him in it, but it was still really tough. It was a big shakeup, a big change. And I'm reminded of the Jack Canfield E plus R equals O. I want to remind you of that today. We've talked about this before. Maybe you're new to the Limitless podcast or new to this equation. E plus R equals O. That is, E is the event. Events happen in our lives that we can't control. R is our response. How we respond equals O, the outcome. So the event happens plus our response equals the outcome. Those two have to go together. When something happens in our life, the outcome is dependent on our response. You are in control of that. A change that could have gone better in your life if you would have responded better? This change that happened when they hired a second supervisor that really upset me. If I would have responded better from the start and gone with the flow, rode the wave, had a better attitude, it would have turned out a lot better from the onset. The person who suffered was really me, with the attitude, with the stress. There's been changes that have happened to you that you probably haven't responded to very well. Remember, E plus R equals O. This equation is everything when it comes to change. There's good changes that are going to happen in your life. And then there's negative changes. And there's probably middle of the road changes. How you respond is everything. I look back at the good changes in my life, increasing my financial status, moving to San Diego, changes that I didn't choose that were preparing me, like getting denied this job opportunity ended up a blessing. And I want you to think about that. When things don't go your way, could this be a blessing? Could this be a challenge that's making you stronger for something bigger and better in the future? Because I believe the best is yet to come. When it comes to change, I want you to believe this down in your spirit, down in your soul, deep in your mind. The best is yet to come. Think about that with changes. It makes me smile. So change is part of life. It's going to happen. So how can we deal with change a little better? First, acknowledge that change can be scary. It can be fearful. It's the unknown. And it's all right to freak out for a minute. Okay, but just do that for a very limited time. Don't let it sit inside you. Don't let it stress you out. Don't let it create an oak tree in your brain. How you deal with change, E plus R equals O. How you respond creates that outcome. So acknowledge, hey, I don't like this change. It's okay to say, well, I should deal with better with change. You don't beat yourself up. Instead, just acknowledge, hey, change is tough. I don't like this change. It's a little scary. My son joining the Marines, my son possibly being deployed in the next 12 months, that's scary. I don't like it. But I'm in control of my reaction. I'm in control of supporting him, my response. It's all right to freak out for a minute. It's all right to even be upset, but then let's come out of it. And next, reflect on past changes in your life and how they turned out. I look back at the disappointments, at the changes that were good, the changes I didn't like, and I look how they've shaped my future to where I am now. And I want that to reflect now. Any changes I go through, like getting run over in January, how's that going to help me in the future? I think it's preparing me. Reflect on past changes in your life. What could you have done better? What went really well? How did they turn out? Did they turn out okay? And learn from those experiences. Remember that it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You're alive right now. You're listening to this. You found this for a reason. This is not a coincidence. We found each other. It's awesome. It's going to be okay. Keep that in your mind. Comfort is complacency. Stagnation takes us nowhere. Procrastination takes us nowhere. We need change to grow. Think about a plant's life. A little seed that you could buy in a store. I was in a store yesterday and they had all their seeds out for spring. I looked at the carrot seeds and just looked at these packets of seeds. They're alive. deep inside that seed, this little thing goes from a seed that's dry as a bone in a packet. You put that thing in the ground with the right soil, the right nutrients, the right water, and all of a sudden it bursts through the soil, a birthing process, bursting through the soil, and then it sees the sunlight, and then it grows into an awesome plant that will eventually grow carrots or squash or whatever you plant. There's no comfort in change, my friends. But there's no comfort in growth either. Growth can be painful. Birth is always painful. Comfort is complacency, my friends. We don't need complacency in life. You're listening to this for a reason. You're here for a reason. Remember that change is part of life. Let's embrace it. In the hiking community, sometimes we say, embrace the suck. And what does that mean? Sometimes you go for a hike and you think it's going to be beautiful and it rains or it's windy or it's cold or you slip and fall. Sometimes you just got to embrace that things aren't going to go your way and make the most of them. Rely on your spiritual source when it comes to change. Whatever your spiritual source is, at times of change, I like to pray. I like to read the Bible. What is it for you? Rely on your spiritual source. And lastly, I just want to reiterate, it's going to be okay. Change is part of life. How we embrace it, how we respond to it is everything. E plus R equals O, my friends. The event happens. Our response equals the outcome. Let's get into application on today's Limitless podcast. 3 pieces of application. Episode 493, dealing with change. Number 1, being limitless, removing limits in your life means handling change. If you're going to grow, you're going to be successful, you're going to start something, you're going to do something great in your life, requires change. Number 2, it's going to be okay. Sometimes changes are thrust upon us that we don't like, that are stressful, even negative changes. Remember, in the end, how we handle it makes everything. But it's going to be okay. I assure you that. Number 3, reflect on the good changes that happen in your life. There are good things that happen to you because of change. Just like me getting denied this opportunity ended up being a great thing. It was hard to see at the time, but I want you to see the light. When a change happens that you're not quite sure if it's good, I want you to imagine the possibilities, imagine the limitless possibilities, and reflect on the past, the good that's happened in your life because of change. My friends, change is part of life. Changes aren't permanent. But change is. It's a constant in our lives, and how you respond to change is everything. You can handle change. You know why? Because you are limitless.